everyone. I'm Linda Nickell, and welcome to the Happiness Hour. Every week, a new guest joins us to share their tips and their stories behind their favorite photographs. If you'd like to sign up for our newsletter, please visit lindanickell.com/happiness hour. Tonight's guest is Joseph Marc Hamner. He goes by Joey, and he's a wildlife, nature, and a landscape photographer whose images do more than capture a scene. They capture a moment, a flash of eye contact, the light just before dusk, a gesture so fleeting it often escapes the naked eye. These are the kinds of moments Joey strives to freeze in time. Through his lens, we see not only the beauty of the natural world, but the spirit, emotion, and wisdom of the creatures that inhabit it. In tonight's session, Capturing the Wild, Joey will guide us through a collection of wildlife images, sharing the stories behind the shots, stories of patience, unpredictability, and the quiet magic that happens when you slow down and pay attention. He'll also offer practical insights into gear choices, compositional strategies, field techniques, and the ethics of photographing animals in their natural habitats. Joey believes that animals feel deeply and that we too can learn from their quiet strength and presence. His goal is to bring us closer to better see the detail, the color, and the wonder in the wild, and to remind us of the freedom and beauty in the world. You can connect with him through his website, josephmarcphotography.com, and you can find him on Instagram at josephmarcphotography. Welcome to the Happiness Hour, Joey.
Hey, I'm glad to be here. And just real quick, when it's Joseph Marc, it is Marc with a C, not a K. I always make sure to tell everybody that because it's just an odd spelling. From South Louisiana, born and raised there. Calling in today from Jackson Hole, Wyoming. I'm sitting in a hotel. I've been photographing bears all week. And I was telling Linda, I wish I could have updated my PowerPoint or my presentation because I got some really, really cool bear shots the other day. And then just a quick story about how I got into wildlife photography. I used to run ultra marathons, and during training, when I was out on the trails running all day long, I'd bring my phone with me or a point and shoot camera and take pictures just to share the things I see. And when I was out on these races, when I was out in the woods running 60 miles, I'd stop and take pictures. And then in 2020, in the middle of COVID, I had a bunch of races planned. They were all canceled. So I decided to take my first trip up to Jackson Hole, where I just happen to be now. And I just had that little point and shoot camera. I think it's like a Nikon Coolpix, whichever number it was. And came here. And when I got back home, started going through the pictures, and it's just like, I need to get a real camera. I mean, nothing that I took here did anything that I saw justice. So I did some research on wildlife photography cameras. And at the time, I think the best or most affordable was the Nikon D500 and the 200 to 500 millimeter lens. So that's what I started with. And now I'm shooting with the Z8. And I've just been doing this since 2020 or really 21 with a real camera, and love doing it, love getting outside. And I'm ready to get started and show some pictures. So this picture was taken in South Louisiana. This was actually taken in January this year. We had a once in a lifetime blizzard down there and had, I think, between 9 to 12 inches of snow. And I knew it was going to be snowing. So at sunrise, before sunrise, I was out taking pictures all day long. And this was it was taken in Fontainebleau State Park. And you just never see the cypress trees like that with the landscape blanketed in snow. So I just had to take this picture. And there's a bunch of other ones that I don't have on here. One of my favorite ones was I wanted a brown pelican in the snow. And I wasn't sure if I'd find them just because of the weather. And I went somewhere and one just happened to fly in while I was there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through a bunch of places I've been. I'm going to start with Wyoming. I'm sorry, Cook City, Montana, then move down to Wyoming, and then further south to Tennessee, Alabama, and then I'll wrap it up with some shots from where I live in Louisiana. And this is a red fox here, and this is one of my favorite fox photos that I have. Just that look, he looks so innocent here, and the snow and the weather was just perfect for it. It was -4 degrees. I'd been out in Cook City for a few days and couldn't find the foxes. And so finally I asked somebody, I was in a restaurant and asked the waitress, and she said, well, if you go down just down the road and there's a house on the corner and there's always foxes there. And I mean, it was like less than a mile from where I'd been looking. And so I was there and a guy came out and he said he's had 40 foxes in his yard before. And at the time I was there, we only had 3 of them show up. And there was a shot that I really wanted. I wanted the fox yawning. And I kept missing that shot. I was waiting for it. And like I said, it was -4 degrees. When I'm shooting, I can't wear gloves. I just can't operate the camera with gloves on. And I know they have the gloves that you could flip the little finger things back, but I don't need that in Louisiana, so I don't think about it when I'm traveling. So missed the shot the first time because I sat down and put the camera down just to get comfortable. Second time I missed it, I put the camera down to warm my hands up. And then the third time, I think I was doing the same thing. And then all of a sudden, a second fox started coming from behind, and I had to make the decision which fox did I want to focus on. And the other fox was running. It was kind of dark, and I knew I wanted the shot of the fox yawning. And this one's kind of curled up in a ball. I've been waiting for it, so I'd made the decision to just focus on him. And then all of a sudden, he stands up, stretches, and lets out that yawn. So I got really more than I bargained for in that shot. And it's just a really cool shot. It was a lot of fun watching him. I sat there for a few hours until I just couldn't feel my hands anymore and had to get back in my truck and warm back up. So this is another shot of one of the foxes that was there. And I knew I wanted kind of a portrait shot with a dark background, but I didn't want to have to go into Lightroom and make it too dark. So the fox happened to walk. They had a house right there. There's a corner that was real dark, and he walked right there. And I was just able to get that dark background without having to do it with any post processing. So it worked out really well. The fox did exactly what I wanted, and just one of those shots you couldn't have asked for him to do anything better. And then this fox is just outside of Cook City. This one was taken in September and was actually the first fox I've ever seen in the wild. And it's kind of an accident finding him. I was sitting out there at a little pool out, trying to figure out how to take pictures. The cliff in the background had, I think, 4 waterfalls on it from the rain. And I just couldn't get a composition for that shot. And it's getting late, so finally I decided to call it. And I started to head back to my hotel. And just as I was pulling out that little turnout, there was a bison sitting on a hill with the mountain peaks in the background. And I thought to myself, I was like, I've been taking pictures of bison all day. I don't need another one. So I just kept going, and it kept bugging me and bugging me and bugging me. So finally, I was like, I'm turning around. I want that shot with the mountain peaks in the background. So I turn around, drive about 5 miles back to where I was, and the shot didn't work out like I wanted. The bison was kind of too close to the trees, and I just couldn't get the mountain peaks in the background. But when I turned around, this fox was just sitting on the side of the road watching me on the other side of the road. So I was able to get this picture. And then I have some other ones where he came across the road to my side, and I was sitting down on like a little game trail, and he runs straight at me until I couldn't focus anymore on him. And I thought he was about to come sit on my lap. And then he just goes off to my right and kept on running like I was never even there. And funny story about this fox is I met a lady today out here in Jackson Hole, and she just left that area of Montana, and she has a picture of this same fox that she took, I think, yesterday. So her and I sat and talked about him for about 20 minutes earlier today. This one was also taken that same day the fox was. I was waiting for a bison just to pose for me. I mean, they're really hard to take pictures of because they're eating so much and they never want to pick their heads up. And when they do pick their heads up, they tend to turn and show you the backside. And I think animals do that on purpose. They know what we want and they tease us just enough to where we can't get the shot. And this one was actually running downhill and then up another little hill. And I was able to position myself real quick and get the shot. And I really, really like the colors in this one. He just really, really helped me out by going on that mound right there. This one was taken, this is the Lamar River, and this was actually taken just before sunrise. And I wasn't sure how it would come out in post, being that it was so dark, because I mean, the original shot was really underexposed. I don't shoot with a tripod, so I can't lower my shutter speed enough to where I could have got it properly exposed in camera. And the reason I don't shoot with the tripod is because I'm moving constantly. And I'll talk about, I think, later doing another shot. I don't want to have to pull the camera off for a shot, put it back on. And so I just find it easier for me to not use a tripod. And it's got its advantages and disadvantages. In low light, it could kind of cause a problem. Not having the tripod just because I can't lower my shutter speed enough. And then when it's better light, I like to just, like I said, be able to move where I want, do different compositions. And I mean, I'll sit there with the landscape and take 200 pictures, just different ideas and trying different things and go through them until I find the right one. And again, it's just something I can't do with a tripod all the time. So this shot here is one that I really, really like. And I purposely overexposed it. These ravens were in the snow. This was taken in Jackson Hole back in November. And I always tell people we shouldn't, when shooting wildlife or photographing wildlife, we should avoid shooting down towards a subject because it makes the subject look smaller and weaker. But there's times when shooting downward does work, such as when you want to show a certain behavior, textures, or in this case, I really wanted that white background. And it was one raven at first, and then the other one just came up as I was taking pictures, and they locked the beaks like that. And even with the overexposure, I was able to go back and post and get that texture and everything and the colors that I wanted in the ravens without getting the textures of the snow, which I was trying to avoid. So this shot here is one I was talking about with the compositions and not using a tripod. This is taken in Jackson Hole. It's a spot very few people know about. And I mean, if anybody wants to know if y'all ever in Jackson Hole, I'll share it with y'all. It's not a secret or anything, just nobody goes there. Um, and it was me and a friend of mine, and she was using a tripod and never got the shot she wanted. And this is the shot she wants. She was actually with me this morning, and we went back out there. She was trying to get position right, but the clouds were just hanging on those mountain peaks and the peaks wouldn't let go of them. So she couldn't get it. But I think I went home with, after this, we took this shot, probably 150 to 200 shots from every angle I could think of, taking them high, low, in front that old Jeep, behind that old Jeep. They have some cabins that are actually off to the right. I tried some with the cabins in the background. They just didn't quite work out with the scene. And that's something I really can't, like I said, I can't do that with a tripod because I'm constantly moving and it would just take forever. Um, But this shot was my favorite out of all of those. And this here, up until today or this week, I've only had a few shots of grizzly bears. I think it was five different bears, but one was a mom and four cubs, and that was taken in 2021. It was actually Grizzly 399 and her four cubs. If you don't know who 399 is, I highly recommend Googling her and find the video that Tom Mangelson did on her. It's a really cool story about her. And unfortunately, she passed away in September, October of last year. She was hit by a car. This is one of her daughters right here. And I took this picture in September. And we were actually looking for beavers. There's a river right on the side. And all of a sudden, I looked up and there's this bear there. And she was walking away. She wanted to find a spot to cross the river and come to our side. She wasn't coming toward like at us or anything. She was looking to go through the willows and head wherever she was going. And she was kind of running. And I've debated on telling the story today or not. I'm just going to go ahead and tell it. I did something we should never do, and I chased the grizzly bear. Now she was on the other side of the river. It's not like I was running right behind her, but she wanted to cross to our side. I've been looking for grizzly bears for a long time, and then there's this opportunity. I just didn't think that day. And she's on one side of the river, I'm on the other side, and I'm running behind her. And then finally she stopped and looked and gave me this shot. And then she went a little bit further down and I have another shot. I think it's on my website where she's swimming across the river in the fog. And it's a really cool shot just having that fog with her in the river. And with that, I'll just talk. Like I said, that's something I shouldn't have done. I know better. And if you're ever in a situation like that, don't put your safety in jeopardy for a shot. A little while later, I was driving to another location. I just thought to myself, I was like, what the hell was I thinking doing that? And even though I was really in no danger, she was probably more than 200 yards away. But just the fact that I was doing that, shouldn't have done it. So I want to share that just to remind everyone to think when shooting wildlife and don't do anything stupid. One thing I like to do when shooting is look for unique opportunities. So this is one of the T.A. Moulton barns on Mormon Row in Jackson Hole, and it's one of the most photographed barns in I think the world. It might be the country, but I think it's the world. And everybody has it, and the Teton Peaks are in the background, and all the pictures you see of it, you have the mountains behind it. They're gorgeous pictures. And I was there a few years ago, and the clouds were just hiding the mountains. Couldn't see them at all. And I thought it'd be a good opportunity to take a picture that nobody has. And so I found a spot where they had that little path going towards the barn and took a few shots and really, really liked this one. I think if I could redo it in post, I'd go back and take that branch at the top out. Unfortunately, I had an external hard drive that crashed and I lost every photo from 2021 until May of last year. And this was one of them. So I don't have that raw file anymore, which means I can't go back and take that branch out without compromising the quality of the photo. So advice, if you don't do it, back everything up twice or three times. So one thing in wildlife is photography is to try and anticipate what the animal is going to do. And so this moose, I met him 2 days in a row. The first day he was at this spot, but across the road from, this is at Blacktail Pond Overlook in Jackson Hole. And he was in a meadow on the opposite side. And it was sunny that day. It was midday. I knew I wouldn't get any good photos, but I was going to try anyway. And so I'm sitting there. I pulled up, they had a moose jam, everybody was looking at him, and he was pretty far off in the field. And so I watched which way he was going and then decided to go about 200 yards away from where everybody else was because I thought, well, he's walking that way. Maybe I get some better shots as he walks close. Well, I picked too much of the right spot, and I'm taking pictures and just firing away as he's walking towards me or towards my direction. And then I lose focus, and I couldn't figure out why. And so I put the camera down and looked up, and the moose is almost on top of me. And so I slowly stood up and started backing up. And at that point, a car came from behind and stopped, and the crowd started making their way towards where we were. And I looked at the driver in the car and said, "I'm getting on the opposite side of your car, and if the moose gets aggressive, I'm getting in your car." And I mean, when I stood up, I could see my reflection in his eye, and so I anticipated where he was going. I just did it too good that day. So I think I took something, fired off something like 500 shots at him that day. Like I said, the lighting wasn't good. I knew better, but I just wanted to give it a shot, thinking I might get something that worked. Not a single shot worked. So the next day, I go back to Blacktail Pond Overlook, and he's down in the valley. On the overlook side, you're looking down. So he's in the valley, kind of far away along a tree line, and he's walking towards this little body of water. And I thought to myself, like, if he goes in that water and poses, it's going to be a great shot. So I set up, and everybody that was there took off to the left because he was kind of walking that way. And so I'm thinking, if he doesn't do what I want, then I'm going to miss the shot. Well, he walks straight through the pond and never stops. And so he keeps walking towards everybody. So I'm like, well, if I want a shot of him, I have to hurry up and get to where everybody is. Well, I get there and he turns around, and I think he's gone back in the water. So I run back to where I was, and he stops in the water, poses, but I didn't get there in time. So in wildlife photography, patience is very important. I'm not one that's going to sit in a blind all day and wait for something. I like to move around and walk and find things. But when I see things and see something I want, I'm willing to wait for it. And in this case, I should have waited. So anyway, he disappears into the willows. You could kind of see the willows were taller than him, and you could see where he's going. And then I'm positioned on this little trail that goes down the little mountainside into the meadow. And I was kind of low on that trail because I didn't want to shoot down if I saw him, but I didn't want to go into the meadow because then you can't see the moose, so you don't get no shot because of the willows. Well, he comes, and remember, this is the same moose from the day before. He comes and he starts walking up the trail I'm on, and it's a narrow trail, and the mountain wall's on one side, and it's a drop off on the other, and not a drop off that would kill me if I fell, but I'm not going to feel good after. And so he's walking right up, and I'm face to face with the moose again. And he looked at me, turned around, walked down, then walked up the ledge and just looked back at me for a few seconds, let me take this shot, and then walked off. And so try and anticipate what your subject's going to do in wildlife, and be patient for it. Sometimes you may miss the shot because you're anticipating them doing one thing, but when you get that shot and they do what you want, it really makes it worth it. So when shooting wildlife, we also want to try and learn their patterns and learn what they're going to do. And it makes it so much easier when you could kind of anticipate and learn, hey, the animal is going to be in this spot at this time. And it doesn't always work because it is a wild animal and they can be unpredictable. But like in this shot right here, this is at the Snake River here in Jackson Hole. And there's a spot where in the fall, during the elk rut, the bull moose, almost every morning, they push the cows across the river. And there's 3 spots that I know of, all within the same vicinity, that they do this. And so it's a guessing game on which spot they're going to go to on which day. And so usually what I do in the fall when I'm out shooting them, and I need to quit saying shooting them, it's photographing them because I don't want people to think I'm going shoot animals. Um, but anyway, I try to go to the same spot every day because you get a better chance instead of trying to, oh, I'm going to be at this spot this day, this one the next day, and then the third one the other day. Because if you go to the same one, you're more likely to get it. And I've learned their patterns pretty good out here. So I know which spot they tend to like to cross the most. So that's usually where I'll go. But there is a shot that I really want. So I think the fall, this coming fall, I'm going to set up there because I'll have Mount Moran in the background, and it'll just be a really, really pretty shot at sunrise if the elk do what I want them to do and cross right there. Sometimes we need to get off the beaten path and away from everybody else to get shots. This was taken at Schwabacher's Landing. I think that's how you say it. I may be saying that wrong. And photographers go to this spot all the time and they set up to get the reflections of the mountain peaks in the water because at sunrise, the sun turns those peaks pink. And so I went there one morning and they had probably over 100 photographers there and just couldn't get a setup where I wanted. So I kind of walked down the trail a little bit, just not knowing what I'd find. And then I found a spot, there was nobody else there. And so I set up and I didn't quite realize it at the time. And if I would have realized it, I'd have kind of set my shot up just a little bit different. But if you look, what's really cool about this shot is you have the top of the trees, then a peak, then the top of the trees, then a peak, then the top of the trees. So it kind of lined up really well with where I set up. And like I said, I don't think I noticed it at the time, maybe subconsciously. I saw that and just, that's why I set up like this. And I think this composition on this one, I think when I put in the PowerPoint, it's a little bit different because those trees at the top should be a little bit lower. And you should have a little bit more sky. So I think something with the PowerPoint changed that just a little bit. But again, get off the beaten path and look for different opportunities. Don't always go where everybody else is, because then you're gonna have the same shot that everybody else does. This shot was taken in 2022, I think, and both of these are the same exact shot. And one thing that I love to do is take pictures and find a better picture within that picture. Um, and a lot of wildlife photographers will say, you need to get it in camera, don't crop. And you can't always get what you want in camera. So sometimes you have to crop. And this is a situation where I think cropping really worked. The moose kind of looks menacing, especially in the black and white shot. And all he was doing, he was just eating grass. He wasn't doing anything more than that. And I find the colored shots kind of boring. It doesn't really, it shows some emotion and everything, but not what I wanted. But when I cropped it and changed it to black and white, I find that to me, it just gives that moose that menacing look and kind of shows his strength a little bit. So don't be afraid to crop when editing wildlife photos. And I have another shot in a little while, and I'll talk about that one and why cropping really works in that one. This is another one of those shots where I was anticipating the coyote coming my way. And this was in Lamar Valley back in March. And I was driving and saw the coyote. And instead of pulling over right where she was, I think she's pregnant. So I'm pretty sure it's a she. I drove probably close to a quarter mile past the direction where it was walking and then set up there, knowing that it would eventually come towards me. And I was less likely, I could get set up without scaring it off. And so I pulled over on the side of the road got set up. I was sitting down in the snow, and she comes and just keeps walking towards me. And she looks kind of menacing here. She looks like she saw me and kind of got a stance where she's trying to scare me off or something. But as she was walking, I just caught her in that moment, and she was looking at me. And as she was walking, she just kept coming towards me. I'm thinking, should I get back in my Jeep or sit here and get the shot? And I didn't feel threatened at all. And she didn't walk close enough to where I would have been in any danger. So I chose to sit there. And this is one of my favorite coyote shots here. And just an FYI for y'all, if y'all ever out here in Jackson Hole or Montana, the coyotes are pretty big. So don't assume they're wolves. And the reason I'm saying that is I was out in Lamar Valley in March specifically for wolves and wasn't seeing any of them and didn't see any of them either. And people kept coming up to me with their cell phones saying they were seeing wolves. And then they show me, I was like, no, that's a coyote right there. And they were all amazed at how big the coyotes are out there. So could be a little bit misleading if you're out there. So just keep that in mind. This shot was taken south of Hoback, Wyoming, back in 2022, I think. And I was driving to Colorado from there. I'd been out here camping out, so I was tired. And I saw probably about a quarter mile away. I could see something sitting on a fence post, and I could tell it was an eagle. And then I thought to myself, like, I'm tired. I've got enough eagle pictures. I don't need another one. And then as I got closer, I was like, you know what? It's snowing out here. I don't have any pictures with the eagles in the snow. And so I pulled over, and as I'm getting my camera out in the car, the second eagle flew right over my head and went and landed next to the one on the fence post. And so that made the shot worth pulling over for sure. And then I got a few of them, but this one I really liked because of their posture with their beaks crossing over like that. And I usually don't like when animals are overlapping like that, but again, how they kind of mirror each other in this one was really, really cool. This shot was taken in Rocky Mountain National Park, and it's a reminder to always turn and look behind you. This elk, I saw him and I got in position for a shot that I thought I wanted. I was actually on the other side of him at the time. He was laying in the grass. And I composed the shot, waiting for him to stand up. And then I started looking around, thinking, wondering if there was a better shot. And then I looked behind me and I was like, that's the shot right there. Because I have those mountains in the background. It's late evening, so I had some nice color in the sky. And so I got up, slowly walked around him, and then set up and far enough away to where there was no danger to me. I wasn't putting any pressure or anything on the elk, and just sat there and waited until he stood up. So I probably waited about 20 minutes, and then he finally stood up and posed for me. And I got that shot. And I just really love the background in this shot. I knew I wanted the mountains, and when I turned and saw that, I knew it was the shot I wanted. So don't forget when trying to compose a shot, look behind you and see maybe there's a better view. And then, if so, try to get in position to do that. This shot, it was in Cades Cove in Smoky Mountains. And one thing I try to tell people with wildlife photography is look for spots where you want something to be and you think it's going to be a great shot, and visit that spot until you find something. And if it's somewhere local, it's real easy to do because you could go there every day if it's local. If you're traveling, it's a little more difficult. So I'd pulled into Cades Cove. This was in late February, and I was driving around. It's a 7 mile loop if you've never been there. And I saw the daffodils growing, and I thought to myself, that'll be a great spot if something shows up there. And that was about midday. So I thought, I'm going to come back here later and see what happens. And later that evening, I was driving back there, and I didn't have to wait. The deer just, he was walking that way. So I saw him. I pulled up far enough away to where I wouldn't scare it, got in position, and then he stopped right there in the daffodils and gave me that shot. And the only thing I wish could have been a little bit different would be he's kind of soft in his body, but that's just because the grass was so tall and he was in the grass. But again, when you see a spot that has a good background, it's something you think will make a good shot, mark that spot and visit it frequently. Go take a walk around and see if you could find anything that identifies wildlife that's visiting that area, such as tracks. Look for game trails, and that'll give you an idea of what's there. And then go in the early mornings or late evenings and just set up and wait. And then this one was also taken in Cades Cove. I was driving, saw the owl fly in, pulled over. I had to walk out in the field, and I don't know which photographer it was. It was either Tom Mangelson or a photographer named Tin Man Lee. I was watching a video from them, and they said something that always stuck with me. And it's, other than your camera, your biggest tool in photography is your 2 feet. Because if you don't have a shot in one spot, you could walk a little bit and find a way to get the shot. So this owl, when he first landed, I saw where he was. The sun was directly behind him. It was just, everything was blown out, and I mean, there was no way I could have got a shot from that spot. So I slowly made my way until I found a spot where I had the trees behind him, and there's that little bit of sunlight coming through the trees, but it's not enough to blow anything out. And then I just waited till the owl looked at me. And another thing in wildlife photography is try to get eye contact. It just makes it more personal between the viewer and the subject that you're shooting. So remember, 2 feet, that's one of your best tools in wildlife photography. Could be one of your best tools in landscape photography also, because if you don't have a shot in one spot, you walk 10 feet the other way, you may have the shot. And this shot, I put it in here because I hate this shot. For whatever reason, I just really don't like it. But I took it and I posted it on social media because it just looks like the sky's on fire in this shot. And I mean, it just took off on social media. I think on Facebook, it just took off. And I don't know why, because like I said, I hate the shot. And I put it in here just to tell everyone, just because you don't like a shot doesn't mean it's not a good shot. We're usually our own worst critic, and we're going to be harder on ourselves than anyone else. And I was showing this to a friend, I think yesterday, and they love this shot. And I'm just like, I hate the shot. And I don't know why I hate it. I just do. So keep that in mind. Just because we don't like something doesn't mean it's a bad shot, doesn't mean it's not worth sharing with others. So don't be too hard on yourself. And the great blue heron, this is one of my favorite birds right here. This was taken in Orange Beach, Alabama. And there's one out here in Jackson Hole. And if I could go get them tomorrow, I'm going to go get pictures of them. It's weird that I come out here to Jackson Hole, just take pictures of a great blue heron, but it is the prettiest heron that I've ever seen out anywhere. I mean, his blues are just really, really vivid. But anyway, back to this shot. I was sitting in Orange Beach, Alabama, next to a little canal or in the marsh, and this heron was there. I was just watching him. I wasn't planning on taking pictures. I had my camera with me, and I was like, maybe if he catches something, it'll be a good shot. And I was thinking he was going to catch like a little crab or a small fish. Well, all of a sudden, he just dives in and comes up with this bass. And that bass is probably about 5 pounds. And so, I mean, it was really amazing to watch that bird eat that fish. And if you go to my Instagram page, there's a video of him putting that fish down because I'll switch to video just to get that shot, just to get that. Um, but you really see in wildlife photography, you really see some amazing things and just how amazing animals really are. And it's just amazing that a bird could put that fish down. And if you watch the video, pay attention once he gets the bird all the way swallowed because you can see the fish. Once the fish is swallowed, you can see it wiggling down his throat. So it's kind of neat to watch that. This is probably one of my favorite bird shots. And I usually don't take pictures of seagulls, but I was walking along the beach in Orange Beach, Alabama, and they had a flock of seagulls in the sand, and one of them yawned. And I thought to myself, I was like, I want to get a shot of a seagull yawning. So I sat there and waited and waited and waited. And finally, this one did it. And it's really cool just to see what it looks like down their throat. So if you have an idea of a shot, like if you're walking around birds or elk or deer, whatever animal it is, and there's something you want to see them do, just sit and wait. And when they do it, it really pays off if you get that shot. There's no story really behind this shot, just a ghost crab. I was trying to get them. They're really hard to take pictures of, surprisingly, because they never sit still. And so I really had to wait for this one and just added it because I really like this shot. Again, no real story behind it. So now we're moving into Louisiana. And this is taken on the Tchefuncte River. I'm really lucky. I live in Covington, Louisiana, and I have a friend, Captain Mike, who runs Louisiana Tours and Adventures, and he takes people on the Tchefuncte River. He does wildlife tours, or he just takes some people swim on the river and go out and just party on it. So he'll do whatever you want to do. So if you're ever down here, I highly recommend going out with him if you want to do a tour on the river because he knows that river like the back of his hand. He knows where to find wildlife, and he's going to get you whatever you want. So he'll call me up every now and then and be like, "Hey, I know where baby owls or there's a beaver over here." So he'll take me out to get the shots, and we have a deal. He doesn't charge me to go out, and then I let him use my shots for his advertisement. But this is This is some cypress trees. They got the Spanish moss hanging off of them, and the sun was just hitting it really perfect that day. This is taken on a bend in the river, and in the fall, the sun just comes down on that bend and just lights everything up with some great lighting. This is an alligator. Um, and one thing with wildlife photography is we want to try and get eye level if we can. And sometimes it's easy, sometimes it's not. But it really brings you in when you can get eye level. So this shot was taken, I was laying on the ground when it was taken. And then the water was really, really calm that day. So you get that good reflection. And what's cool about this shot is if you kind of tilt your head and look at it up and down, it changes the whole perspective. And it doesn't even look like an alligator anymore. It looks like something else. So I could take this shot and print it and just print it as a up and down shot instead of like in a landscape format, and it'll look completely different. So it's really cool when you get to play with things like that. And I have some cloud shots coming up that'll show you that. This is a yellow crowned night heron. I don't see them too often down in Louisiana. They're typically here in the spring. And I came across this one on accident a few weeks ago. And I didn't think I was going to get a shot because he was in the marsh hunting. When I pulled over, I would have been shooting down at him. So I had to walk down a little ledge type thing, and he flew off. but he landed in a tree, which was perfect spot for him to land because now he's eye level with me. And I was able to get this shot. And I really like the greens behind him. It gives it's springtime, so it kind of gives you that springtime feeling. And the bird's just, it's a beautiful bird. I love when I get to see the yellow crowned night herons. The next two shots are of a green heron. And there's really no stories behind the shot, but one really cool thing about the green heron is they are one of the few birds that are known to use tools and bait to fish with. So here, this one is I don't know if he was hunting or not. He never went to try and catch anything. He may have just been sitting there resting. But in this shot, this is a different green heron. He was on some giant lily pads. This was taken in Black Bayou Lake, which is in Monroe, Louisiana. And if you look right in front of him, there's that little piece of grass. And what he was doing, he would pick that grass up and put it in the water. He was using it for bait, trying to bait in a minnow or a small fish for him to catch. Unfortunately, while I was there, he didn't catch anything. But it's just really cool watching birds use tools like that to catch fish. The black-bellied whistling duck here, again, no story behind this one. This is taken at one of my favorite places to go, Big Branch Marsh National Wildlife Refuge. The whistling ducks are pretty common down here now. We used to never have any of them down here. And then I think it was after Katrina that they started showing up. So I don't know if it's true or not, but I've heard that Katrina blew them in from Mexico, and then they just thrive down here in Louisiana. And they're a really cool bird. They're not shy, so you could get fairly close to them to get some good shots without scaring them off. They roost in trees, kind of like wood ducks, and you hear them coming from a mile away because they have that whistling sound, which is where they get their name, the black-bellied whistling duck. Here's my eight-legged bird. This is I've just forgot it. It's a stilt. Now I can't think of a black-necked stilt. I might be wrong about that. My mind just went blank on this bird, but it's definitely a stilt. Um, I was in West Monroe, Louisiana, and they had a pond with a bunch of them, and this one had some chicks. And when I got out my car, all the chicks were running around. I was trying to get a picture of one of the chicks, but they all ran to her and just started burying themselves under her wings. And they all hidden under there. So it looks like she has eight legs. So I love showing this photo because everyone looks at it and they get confused until I tell the story. And you can kind of see the one all the way on the right. You can see its butt sticking out at you. But really cool to see a bird do that, and real fun to watch different animals on how they protect their young and take care of them. This one's just a little humor right here. I've taken lots of pictures of squirrels. I've seen them eating all kinds of things, acorns, pecans, different nuts, grass, pine cones, but I've never seen one eating a piece of Popeye's fried chicken. So I was at Fontainebleau State Park and someone left their chicken out after they left the park, and this squirrel was just going to town eating it. After I took the picture, he actually grabbed that piece of chicken, ran up the tree, and kept eating it. So he was enjoying it, and more power to him. But with that said, we should never feed the wildlife. I just want to point that out. I wasn't feeding them. That whoever left that there didn't intend to feed them. They just didn't think. But when we start feeding wildlife, a lot of times they become desensitized to people, and that could be a big problem. The food may also cause harm to them. But if we're feeding wildlife, let's just say alligators or bears, and they start coming to people expecting food, what's going to happen is either somebody's going to get hurt, and if or they're going to put the animal down. And if the animal hurts a person, they're definitely putting it down. If it keeps coming close to people, they'll probably try and relocate it. But if it continues to be a problem, they're going to put it down. So please don't feed any wild animals. If you have bird feeders in your backyard, that's fine. But don't try to bait things in just to get shots. Sometimes we have to be patient to get the shot we want. And I know a lot of people don't like snakes. I have people that refuse to look at any snake picture that I take. But I saw the snake and the mosquitoes were real bad that day. And it's like, it would be really cool to have a mosquito on top of the snake. So got in position. I was laying in the mud on my belly, eye level with the snake, and just waited. And I mean, the mosquitoes were tearing me up, but I wanted the shot. So I just sat there waiting and waiting. And then probably after 15 minutes, one finally landed on the snake. And I was able to get this picture. And luckily, it landed right on top of his head. So it really, really worked out for me. I mentioned earlier cropping, and this osprey right here. Every day in the wintertime, there's a place in Lacombe, Louisiana, not far from where I live, called Lake Road. And there's a big telephone post at the end of Lake Road. Like you drive down the road, there's water on both sides. And then it opens up to like the road ends and you're at Lake Pontchartrain. But there's a big telephone pole there. And every day in the wintertime, this osprey's sitting on top of that pole eating fish. And I usually ignore them just because I don't like taking pictures of animals on man-made structures unless it's like an old fence or something, kind of like that shot with the eagles. But a telephone pole I usually try to avoid. Well, this day he had his fish, he was eating it. And so I was there just seeing if anything else would come in. And he flew off with his fish. Then right after he flew off, two eagles flew by. And then the osprey comes back and lands on his back on the telephone post with no fish. So I think what happened was the eagles chased him until he dropped the fish, and the eagles took the fish. Because I know eagles will do that to osprey, and osprey will do that to eagles. But he wasn't happy that he lost his fish. And so I was like, I wonder if I could get a shot and just crop it and get that telephone post out of it. And so I did that and then got this shot. And I mean, if looks could kill, I'd be dead right now because he was not happy. So cropping in this case like really worked out. And one of my favorite things about osprey is, as far as birds go, they'll give you all kinds of looks. Osprey have like tons of personality. And even when they fly, and if you're taking pictures of them, they'll look at you while they flying by. It's like they give you these looks like, why are you taking my picture? Leave me alone. So anytime I see osprey, it's fun to get pictures of them. In fact, tomorrow I found a nest out here, not far from where I'm at in Jackson Hole, and it's over the Buffalo Valley Fork River, I think it is, or Buffalo Fork River, and it's actually on a telephone pole. Well, next to a telephone pole out here, they build the post with the platform for them. But what's really cool is I'm higher than the nest. So, and they've been sitting on eggs up there. So I'm really hoping that the eggs hatch before I leave. That way I could go get some pictures and show what it looks like inside the nest with the chicks in there. But it may not happen, just I can't make the eggs hatch when I want. So we'll see. This is just Sunset and Big Branch. And kind of how I started taking pictures was, if you look in the back here, those white dots, that's egrets roosting. And when I got my D500, I'd go out every day, and the egrets used to come out here in this spot, and in the summertime, every day at the same time, they were flying in to roost right there. So I'd go and take pictures of them and just try and get good shots. It was a lot of fun because they'd land in the trees and they'd fight each other for the branch. But the egrets really, really helped me out with photography. because if you've ever taken photos of a white bird, it could be really tough, especially if the sun's still out, because it's hard to get the shot without them being exposed or the background being too bad. But this was taken after sunset. And one thing I love about that I like to do with sunsets is wait till the sun's below the horizon for the picture or just about before it dips below. And that's when you tend to get those really cool, vivid colors. And I love clouds in the sky. I hate more than anything just a plain blue sky. In fact, if it's a blue sky day, I probably won't even go out and shoot just because I hate it that much. This is an armadillo right here. I think I mentioned learning animal patterns, and I've learned that armadillos, at least the ones down here, they like to come out more in the wintertime. During the summer, I guess they disappear further into the woods, but they'll come out during the winter looking for food. So there's some spots I could go when it's cooler outside and take pictures of them. They're a pretty interesting animal to photograph. They don't have good eyesight, so they don't see you until the last minute. And then when they do see it, sometimes it's fun if you could get the shot where they get startled and they jump up. It's really cool when they do that. But they like to go eat different insects during the wintertime. So again, learn whatever wildlife you're trying to take pictures of, learn their patterns, learn their behaviors, learn what time of year they're going to be out and where they're going to be out. This is just a little baby goose. My backyard, there's a pond, and the front of my neighborhood, they have some ponds, and the geese lay their eggs, and then they walk about a mile down the road to the pond by my house, and that's where they'll raise the little goslings. I guess because it's out the way of everything and kind of quiet. But one day they were out, and I just sat and took pictures of them for a little while. What's really cool about these geese is Easter Sunday, I was walking through the neighborhood and I noticed a funny looking goose. And I started looking, I was like, that's not a goose, that's a turkey. And I've never seen a turkey anywhere near where I live. And the turkey came from somewhere, the goose accepted it. So the turkey follows the geese around all day long, eating with them, hanging out with them. And then if the geese fly from one pond to the other, or swim from one pond to the other one, the turkey will walk down to the edge of the water and look at it like he's thinking of trying to swim, and then he'll end up flying to meet the geese wherever they are. And I find that real interesting because geese and turkeys could be pretty territorial. So it's interesting how they've just accepted that turkey and as one of their own. This is a purple gallinule. I don't see those much in Louisiana. I know they have them a lot, but typically I don't see them. I see the common gallinule all the time and typically ignore it because I just don't find them that interesting of a subject. But I really love the colors of the purple ones, especially in the springtime. And I think some of y'all mentioned birds. I'm sure y'all know springtime birds have like the best colors. So this was taken a few weeks ago, and I really, really like this picture because I like the colors of the birds. I typically hate green in a picture, but the green really worked out in this one. I don't find the green overdone like it sometimes is. That's probably the biggest thing I fight with in my wildlife pictures is when there's a lot of green, trying to get it right and just not that weird green, which I'm sure if y'all have done photography for a while, y'all know the green I'm talking about. And this is another alligator. What's cool about him, and I didn't realize it at the time, was he's a three-legged alligator. So the leg on the left side is missing. Don't know what happened. Could have been lost in a fight with another alligator. It seems like he's been like that for a pretty long time because it's healed up. But it could have also happened when it was real young, and snapping turtle or a bird could have got him and taken that leg off. But he did. doesn't seem to be having any problems. This shot was taken in the Joyce Wildlife Management area. I was out with Mike again. He took me out there in his mud boat, and we're driving through the swamp. And I mean, it's a maze through the cypress swamp. If I'd have been lost if he didn't know where he was going, I'd still be out there trying to find my way back. But he took me out to a pond that's just in the middle of the swamp. All of a sudden, it opens up to this 2 acre pond. And when you get to this pond, I mean, there are about 30 big alligators in that little pond. And this one, he wasn't that big, probably about 5 feet long. It was just sitting on the bank, didn't go in when we came, and just let me get a few shots of him. And
Joey,
the, uh-huh.
I was going to get you to pause so I can get some questions in before we run out of time.
Okay.
Do you have a lot more?
Um, Not too much, but let me go through these because I want to. I'll go real quick. There's one picture I want to talk about real quick.
Sure.
So brown pelican right here. This is an otter. Again, looking down on him really worked out here. It was actually mating at the time. There was another one on his back that you can't see here. These were taken in Tennessee. This is the shot I wanted to talk about. Just because it was really lucky that I got it. The day before this shot was taken, I was out with a guy. We were in Black Bayou Wildlife Refuge, and there's train tracks that go through right there. And I was telling him, we were talking about photography. I was showing him a few things that I do. And I told him, I said, I really want to get deer on the train track. I don't know why, I just wanted that shot. And the next day I was back out there and I was leaving and the train was coming. And I thought to myself, I was like, that'll be a cool picture with that little bit of fog, the train lights, and then the trees on the side. It was almost dark at that time. And as I'm taking the pictures, the deer walked through. I had no clue they were there until after I started taking pictures. So it's really funny. I want to tell the story just because I was talking about this shot the day before, and then the next day the deer come out on the tracks. The train happens to be coming, and I get that shot. And I was talking to the guy afterwards, and he said he's never seen a train pass right there before. And he lives out. This was in Monroe, and he lives out there and has never seen the train pass that area. So kind of weird that I talked about it and then got this shot. And then one last thing, Linda, then it's all yours. Um, I mentioned trying to get creative with shots. This is just a shot of the clouds at sunset, both this one and this one. And they're kind of artsy type shots, but what I did, it looks like I'm taking a picture from above the clouds, but all I did was flip them upside down. And I was like, man, this looks a lot cooler than just the shot of the clouds. So when doing landscapes or wildlife, get creative and try different things. Don't get stuck with the rules in photography and think you can't break them. Get creative and try new things. Okay, whenever you're ready, Linda.
Okay. Well, no, I want you to talk about your workshops here real quick. Or
Okay, so
sure.
I do offer workshops. These are the ones for 2026 right here. They're going to all be here in Grand Teton National Park, Jackson Hole, um, possibly a day trip to Yellowstone. And I'm out here kind of scouting some new areas because I want to take people to some of the lesser known places where you could get good wildlife shots, where you're not going to be surrounded by 8 million other people. Um, the bear jams out here are fun because you get to meet photographers and talk about different things. But I like being somewhere where you with just a few people and you get to have that moment with the wildlife and you're not worried about anything else going on. It creates like a real special moment between you and the subject. So that's what I'm out here trying to find these hole in the wall areas that I could take people. And one thing that I like to do, and I wanted to do this after a few years ago. I was out here, and when I got the picture of Grizzly 610, who was in one of the pictures I showed y'all, it was just me and two friends when we saw her cross the river. Then she ran across the road through the willows, heading from, if you're familiar with Grand Teton National Park at all, she was at the dam, out the Jackson Lake Dam, and then she was heading towards Pilgrim's Creek. And when she took off across the road, she just kept on going. And then they had a van full of, I don't know if it's a workshop going on or if it's one of the wildlife safaris that they have out here. But they pulled over because somebody saw the bear cross the road and people were stopping. And I told the guide, I said, the bear's gone. She's not coming back. She's heading towards Pilgrim's Creek. And he said, well, we're going to sit here anyway and wait. And it kind of, even though I wasn't involved with that group, it kind of upset me because you've got clients with you, you got people who want to see wildlife, and there's no guarantee that you're ever going to see anything. But if somebody tells you, hey, the bear's gone, it's gone the other way, don't waste your client's time sitting there doing nothing, waiting for something that's not coming back. So that's one thing that I've kind of learned and really want to do is not waste anybody's time. Again, you can't predict anything or predict that you're going to see something. But if something leaves, I want to make sure we get on to the next spot to have our best chance of seeing something. And even if you're the the greatest photographer in the world, if you want to come on these trips, I like to teach people about the areas, give them talk about the different spots we're at and why things are in those spots. Talk about the different patterns, where how the bears, especially out here with the bears, how they go from this spot to the next spot, or maybe the history of the area. Or if you're not a photographer and you just use your cell phone, there's still things you could learn when taking pictures with a cell phone. I know a lot of workshops kind of push you to have a real camera, but if you don't want to spend the money on a camera and you just have your cell phone, I'm going to work with you and help you to get better shots with your phone. So those are the dates. If you have any questions, feel free to message me. My phone number's on my website. You could text me, call me, or email me. It doesn't matter. Um, so that's the workshops.
Okay. Great. Let me ask you to take your screen down and I'm going to hit you with a few questions. Speaking of your Teton workshops, Gail's question is, how much hiking is involved in your tours?
Not much. The most we might do would be a quarter mile to a half mile, and that's total like from quarter mile one way and quarter mile back. So it's not much hiking unless there was a group and they really want to go for hikes. But I don't want to take people too deep on hikes because just for safety reasons. I don't want
Yeah.
to put people somewhere where they're not familiar with everything and just something happened and there's not much cell phone service out here. So I don't want to put anybody in any danger. So it'll be very little hiking. Again, unless there's a group and we all just decide well beforehand, hey, we want to hike up and get pictures of Amphitheater Lake at sunrise. And that's a 5 mile hike with, I think, 3,000 feet of gain. So that would be something the whole group would have to do, like agree
Mhm.
on. And that's a bucket list shot of mine. I wanted to get it in the fall, but I was by myself. And if you do a lot of hiking, a trail in the day is different from a trail at night. And
Right.
I've done that hike before. I know the route during the day, but I just don't want to do it by myself at night. I'm not afraid of wildlife. It's if I get lost back home, I could hike 1 mile one way and I'm going to come to a service road. Out here, I could hike for a week and never see another person if I get lost. So to answer your question, not much hiking at all.
Okay. How about do you have any tours in Louisiana? We have somebody that's her home base. So she's curious if you run any tours there.
I don't have any schedule, but I do private also, private workshops or
Okay, that's
things
good
like
to
that.
know.
And which part of Louisiana?
I don't know.
Okay,
That was, yeah. But the fact that you offer private ones, she can reach out to you if that's
yeah.
what
And
she wants.
if I could work on putting together a group there, I was going to do, we tried doing one on the Tchefuncte River last year, but
Okay.
didn't have much traction for it. But it wasn't promoted much because Mike was planning on vacation right around that time. I didn't want to make him have to skip his vacation. So,
Okay. Can you is Mike the guy that runs the boat tours?
yeah,
Can you give his name out one more time? Somebody was
yeah.
asking.
So his name is Mike Jones, and his Instagram is Louisiana Tours and Adventures.
Okay.
And I tell you, he's good. He could tell you the history of that river, and he's a young guy too. Like he just grew up on the river, and it's amazing what he knows.
Okay. Great. Debbie's question was, this goes back to the bear that you quote unquote chased after. She wanted to know how wide was that river?
It's pretty wide. I mean, I would. So you're supposed to be 100 yards away from bears and something else, wolves, I think. And I was well within that distance, so I wasn't like 50 yards from it. Like I said, there was no danger. Like she wasn't coming after us. She just wanted to cross the river and head wherever she was going. And one thing, people get a little scared of bears, and we probably should be a little scared, but grizzly bears, I think it's 90% of their diet is vegetation. They are typically not going to attack a human for food. It does very rarely happen, but most attacks happen because you get between the mama and her cub, and that's any animal pretty much. You get too close to their food source. For example, if they're eating a carcass of elk and you get too close, they're going to think you're trying to get that food and they'll attack them. Or when you're hiking and you're quiet and you just spook one and it goes into defensive mode, then it may attack you. Not saying that they won't attack just to attack, but it's not as common as people think. In fact, you're more likely to have a tree fall on top of your head than get attacked by a bear. And nobody thinks twice about sitting under a tree.
No, we don't. Okay, I'm going to rush through a couple of these other questions. So, Holly's question is, so you say you go off the beaten path, but doesn't going off the beaten paths cause that the native flora to be disturbed and degrades the environment? If not, how do you get to these places? She's just curious because she was always told to basically stay on the paths in both Grand Teton and Yellowstone.
Okay, so she is right. And so maybe I should have been a little more clear. To off the beaten path is the trails less taken. For
Mhm.
example, I've been up here several times, and I've never done the Jenny Lake Trail out here because there's always a million people on it. Um,
Mhm.
but I've done the Amphitheater Lake Trail, which is a lot less traveled. So maybe I should have said that the path's less traveled, not off,
So,
if that makes sense.
so you're staying on marked trails in the park. You're just choosing ones that aren't as popular or as well known.
Yes. In fact, I wouldn't recommend to anybody just go and hike off trail through the woods out here because if you get lost, like I said, you'll be lost for days. So I'd never recommend that. So it's just trails that are less populated, less people find them. One of the places I found that's off the beaten path that I support off this trip, which I want to add to one of the workshops. It's um it's an old forest road, and it goes all the way around Togety Pass. And there's supposed to be a lot of really big bull moose out there in the fall. So I think it's gonna be a really cool spot. So when I come back in the fall, I'm going to check it out to make sure that the moose are out there. But that's a really good question, and she is correct.
Okay. These are technical questions. if you know this off the top of your head, hopefully, so you don't have to go back looking for. I was a little slow on the uptake on the questions here, but this was the photo with the rested car,
Uh-huh.
the mountain range. Someone wants to know what was the camera setting? Do you remember what you might have
N-
been at?
Not offhand. I could tell you it was probably underexposed because that shot was actually taken midday and there weren't many. They had the clouds over the mountain, but over us, it was really sunny. So some of that work was done in post. I'm pretty sure I just purposely underexposed it because that midday light, I mean, we all know it's pretty harsh. But if you want to,
This
if you want to email me those types of questions, I could send them back and you could post them for everybody. Because I could go back in my photos and find out.
Yeah. So the seagull photo that got quite a reaction from the crowd here tonight. Curious, what kind of lens were you using, and if you know the settings?
Again, that was I think 2 years ago, so I don't remember the settings. Again, I could email me that question. I'll be glad to answer it. Um, I was using a Nikon D500 at the time with a 200 to 500 5.6 lens.
Okay. So what lenses are you using now on your Z8?
So I have the 180 to 600. My dream lens is the 600 f4 with the built-in teleconverter, but I don't have 13 grand to drop on a lens. Um, for landscapes, I typically use the 24 to 70, and then I also have a 70 to 200. I do barrel racing also, and I'll use that for barrel racing. Now, one thing that I do like to do with landscapes is, especially in the mountains, use the 180 to 6 and get those really, really tight shots, especially when there's clouds around the mountain peaks, and you can just really get up there and get those clouds on those peaks.
All right, Joey, I'm going to close out tonight's session. But first, I want to thank you for accepting my invitation to come and share your work. And more importantly for me, the stories behind your photos. I'm definitely going to make sure you get a copy of the chat tonight. There were an awful lot of nice comments about your work, and it just absolutely sharp, just well done wildlife photos. So, I'm a little envious because that's kind of the photography I'd like to be doing, and I
But
need to get
like
figure
like
out.
like I said, don't ever compare your work to anybody else's
Oh,
because
I do all the time.
and we all do, but
We all do. And it's okay. It's a good, healthy, it's actually it's incentive to get out there and put in the practice. So you've inspired me to pull my camera back out. All right. Next week, Chicago-based photographer Jerry Whitley joins us to share her presentation, Cityscapes, Capturing the Beauty of Cities. Until next time, go out and create something beautiful. And I hope that we see you again soon.